Hello and welcome to another edition of ATL Prime Sports. I'm Jurjevich. Joining me this evening is Todd Corder up there in Woodstock, and of course our fabulous producer Wayne Ridenauer in Memphis, Tennessee. You can catch us all at ATL Prime Sports on Facebook, Instagram, X, of course YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. Our personal X's at JJ Get You One for myself, at RWY Junior for Wayne, at Corder Todd for TC Todd Corder, and at LG for Real Though for Larry Gardner, the voice of the Rome Emperors, who is out this evening. We're hoping to catch him by the end of the show, so it's 50-50, but we're always thinking about Larry and what he does for this program, so hopefully he'll be able to join us. Wayne, how you doing this evening?
Well, I was doing a lot better until Memphis fell to the Auburn Tigers in the Maui Invitational Tournament. But what some people, I guess, if you watch the show, you realize that both Memphis and Auburn are my favorites. It's just Auburn is not as much favorite. And so, if Auburn wins, that's cool with me. I'm fine with that because it's still a favorite, just not as much.
TC, how you doing, buddy?
Doing fantastic. The NBA fined the Atlanta Hawks $100,000, get this, for violating a player participating rule regarding Trae Young's absence from a game from the Celtics after the league determined after independent physical physicians review that the Young's Achilles tendon didn't justify his absence. Sweet Lord, this is sad that the NBA even has to have a player participating rule, but they have to have one because of the, what do they call it now? Managing your minutes or whatever in the world they call it. Load management, managing your minutes. I mean, no wonder the NBA's ratings are down 28% in the early part of the season. I just shake my head. Speaking of shaking my head, number two real quick. Of course, you know about the Hail Mary that Cleveland tried in the Snow Bowl last Thursday. And the wide receiver George Pickens and Cleveland Browns cornerback Greg Newsome during the Hail Mary and the shenanigans that went on, and the fact that George Pickens wasn't even close to the football. He was more concerned of trying to take out Greg Newsome in the stands than he was trying to get a Hail Mary from Russell Wilson to win the game. And this stuff is pathetic. That's the second play this season in the NFL where a quarterback or a wide receiver has had his head up his Kulu instead of focusing on the game and focusing on other garbage like the quarterback in the stands did for Washington, and now Pickens focusing on Greg Newsome. I know he was held down the field, but you can't tell me you can't get away from him and get to the middle of that play. Third and last, finally, I'll make it quick.
Oh, wow, we got a third one. Nice.
I got a third one. I've been on it a while. I get three. So the Jacksonville Dolphins.
Yeah, because you're Todd Corder.
The Georgia Bulldogs. Saturday night, 7 o'clock, I'll have the call on 1010 AM and XL 92.5 FM Jack Sports Radio out of Jacksonville, Florida against Georgia at Stegman Coliseum at 7 p.m. You can't make the game in Athens. You can listen to it online or catch me on the radio in the local Jacksonville area.
Well, all right, JJ, how are you doing?
Yeah, I had to make sure Todd was done there after the 5-minute monologue. All right, good. Not as good as Georgia men's basketball, though, which I was going to shout out Todd's game on Saturday, but no need to do that. But Georgia men's basketball, Dogs got their first ranked win in over a year on Sunday, beating number 22 St. John's 66-63 in the Bahamas. It was also their first non-conference ranked win since 2021 when they beat, sorry, Wayne, your Memphis Tigers at number 18. So doing well, but not that well. Todd, I'm just teasing with you, man. What's on tap for today's show? A college football, college football playoff roundtable. And we will preview and pick 6 of the best football games in our pick 6. Excuse me. Guys, latest college football playoff rankings are out. You wet my whistle here. What does that mean for your favorite team? Let's have a college football playoff roundtable, and I'll start this bad boy off by asking what we asked on our ATL Prime Sports poll question. Will there be at least one 3-loss team in the final college football playoff rankings? Todd, we'll start with you. It's seeming more and more inevitable as the season unfolds, with one game left for everybody on their schedule Saturday, regular season-wise. What are your thoughts on at least one 3-loss team making the college football playoff?
It's looking like a possibility, but Indiana, Notre Dame, Indiana beats Purdue, they're in. Notre Dame beats USC, they're in. And, after this week's games, it should, the results should provide some more clarity. Obviously, Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina need help. South Carolina and Clemson's going to be a key game. Texas A&M, ironically, controls its destiny. If they beat Texas and beat Georgia, they'll be in. There's so many possibilities. What happens if Penn State loses? What will they do with them? Would they drop them out? I don't know. Boise State's another key. They don't win, it's going to open the door. I mean, if these teams all happen to lose, then we'll probably get multiple 3-loss teams in. But I don't know until the results are played this week. We'll have some more clarity, and then look into the conference championship games the following week. But right now, you get 12 spots, and I would have to say, 16, 17 teams have a shot at it. So 5 will probably be left out. It should be a lot of fun, and we'll see how it shakes out.
Yeah, I think the answer to that question is yes. I think 100% there'll be a 3-loss team. I think your best possibility of that scenario is Georgia. If they win Friday night in Athens and clean old-fashioned hate, they'll have that 10th win, and they'll have the championship game to go to. And if they lose that game to Texas, in my honest opinion, I don't think the committee will punish Georgia for beating Texas in Austin and then losing to them at a neutral site in a championship game setting. So I think Georgia's your best shot. I do think the answer to that question is, again, 100% yes. At least one team with 3 losses will get in that college football playoff. In the history of the college football playoff rankings, there's been 22 teams with 3 losses ranked in the top 12 of the final college football playoff rankings. So it is beyond a possibility. It's almost a probability that it will happen. It's just how many. If chaos ensues, you could see South Carolina play their way in. And then, if Syracuse beats Miami and South Carolina still beats Clemson could back their way into the ACC title game and still get a first-round bye. So, really, anything goes in this college football playoff. Wayne, what's your answer? Do you think a 3-loss team gets in this college football playoff next week?
I actually do think one is going to get in there. I'm not going to really like it. And my prediction is it's going to be one of probably 4 SEC teams that will be that 3rd-loss team that'll get in. I don't think there'll be a 3-loss from any other conference, though.
Yeah, it's going to be real interesting. And here's where we'll just kind of have a fun discussion. We'll go forward and just kind of talk college football playoff and scenarios. But a lot of people, including myself, I have to admit, I kind of thought the Power 4 had an automatics, but that's not the case. So if Tulane somehow wins their conference, and let's say Boise drops to Oregon State and falls way out of the top 15 to 25, there's a possibility where you could see Tulane grab that spot. And let's say Arizona State drops a game this weekend, Colorado drops a game this weekend, and you see just more losses in the Big 12. You could see the Big 12 completely left out of this picture because currently, Todd, there's only 2 ranked Big 12 teams. And we talked about this earlier. Your thoughts on that? What are the crazy possibilities that a Tulane gets in this bad boy with almost no rankings whatsoever
I don't
all
see
year.
Tulane
And it kind
in.
of
I
brings
could
me
see
to
Tulane dropping
my
a game
second.
to Army. I mean, I could see Tulane dropping a game to Army. I don't know. In terms of Georgia, I know one thing: they better win that They better win that SEC title game, no matter what happens against Georgia Tech, because that assures their way in. Because if they don't, they're going to leave it in the hands of the committee. And a year ago, they were 1, they lost, they dropped to 5 because 2, 3, 4, and 5 actually all won. That dropped them down to 5. Anything can happen. Any scenario can happen. And this is the first time for the 12-team playoffs, so there's a lot of intrigue involved. And we'll just see how it shakes out. I'm not a fan of
Actually,
having.
Georgia dropped to 6 last year after their loss in the SEC title game. They dropped behind Florida State.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Florida. Yeah, speaking of Florida State, they were undefeated and they were left out. So college football is the only sport on this earth where you can win your conference division, whatever in the hell you want to call it, go undefeated. Oh, by the way, your quarterback's hurt. We're not going to put you in. I'm sorry. That's just the dumbest thing I've ever heard. They don't do that in any other sport. Any other sport, they have auto qualifiers from Pee Wee to the pros. And the NFL, oh, sorry, Kirk Cousins.
Well, again, yes, but in college football, we discussed this earlier. There's too many teams to not have some at-large bids. It's just there's too many teams.
I've heard that deal. I think that there's a will, there's a way. I mean, could you imagine the Falcons? They get in the playoffs. Kirk Cousins is hurt. You know what? I don't think we'll let Atlanta in. We'll let Tampa Bay in. Their starting quarterback's healthy, and the Falcons is not. This is dumber than dumb. Anything else is a reach. I just don't understand why college football, Division I college football, cannot get its act together and get a playoff and make it legit.
Yeah, it's tough. I think the biggest obstacle is the amount of teams. There's 135 teams starting next year with Southeast Missouri State going into Conference USA. And I stand corrected. There's 4 Big 12 teams. All the 6 and 2 teams in conference are currently ranked, but they're all right there behind Boise State. And that's why I was saying if those teams lose, you could see the Big 12 eliminate itself, but I don't see that happening. I'm thinking Arizona State's going to hold on to this conference and get one of those last bids, but it's just crazy. Todd, you make a great point. The automatic qualifiers are necessary, and it's one of the reasons why Greg Sankey was one of the last ones to approve this 12-team playoff, because he wanted to say, hey, I want to make sure I'm doing the best for my conference, that I'm not leaving players, or I should say teams, on the table that could be in the dance at the end of the year. So very interesting moving forward with what the playoff committee will do after rivalry week and after championship week. There's still a lot of chaos left to be had, which brings me to my second question is, which team, if any, are out of the college football playoff now but could work their way back in? And I think any one of those Big 12 teams that find a way to get in the championship game, because let's face it, there's still a possibility where you could have like a 6, 8, 9-way tie, whatever the heck it is, in the Big 12 if everybody were to lose on Saturday. So that would just be mind-boggling in itself, figuring out the tiebreakers in that scenario. But yeah, I think one of those Big 12 teams is a good bet. I also think Tulane could be one of those guys if teams lose. Now that's a lot of chaos, and I don't think a lot of this would happen because it would take beyond. It'd be beyond chaos. It'd just be a cluster.
The best bet, without a doubt, is Alabama. The best bet is with that. They're sitting there.
Well, sure. I'm not talking about the obvious, Todd. I'm talking about people that are completely out of the playoff picture,
look
in the
at
20s or below. I'm not talking about someone that's just out, like 1 or 2 out. Obviously, they're still in it. I'm talking about a
Texas A&M
team
ranked
that's
20th, and they control
beyond
their own fate.
Todd, we know that. That's why they're still in the playoff race. I'm talking about a team that's outside the top 20. That's what I
Give me
say.
another one.
So give me a team that's outside of the top 20 that's not in the college football playoff
I can do
picture.
that. UNLV, the Mountain West.
There you
They're
go.
one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. They have played their way back into a ranking. They've also played their way back into the conference title discussion with Boise State. So, yeah, that's a great pick. UNLV's right there. There's still a ton of teams because of the automatic qualifiers that still have opportunities to win their conference and possibly get in. But, yeah, I'm with you. I think it's one of the Big 12 teams. I think UNLV's a really good pick. And it's going to be fun. Wayne, what say you, man? Is there a team outside of the playoffs that you think in a crazy scenario could possibly sneak in if, chaos happens?
Yeah, well, I don't think any of the teams outside the top 20 have that chance. So the two that I looked at based on the question was Arizona State and Tulane. I think they've probably got the best chance of getting in, and they're currently way out.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we're on the same page because Tulane's only two losses that are Power 5 teams. They're unbeaten in their American Conference, and they play a big one against your Tigers this weekend for a shot at the American Athletic Conference Championship. Let's keep on this train rolling. Guys, we talked about this. We talked about it for a little bit here. How would you decide the college football playoff? How many teams would you have in your college football playoffs? This is just a fun discussion. Todd and I were kind of talking about it. We thought we'd bring you to the podcast here. Wayne, I'm interested to hear your thoughts, man. How would you decide the college football playoff? You've been one and adamant to say just go back to the computers or go back to the way we used to have it. How would you decide it?
Well, if you really want a tournament, if you really, really want a tournament, and that's what you're looking for, then we need to have a 165-team round-robin tournament that starts in August. And each game does not eliminate you, but it puts you farther back in the chance to be champion. And it works its way through the bowl games until there's two teams left and they play each other, and that's it.
That's not actually a bad take on it. Go ahead.
Yeah. No,
I alcohol today.
I did go by Sonic though.
Hey, maybe a Sonic affected you. No, You know what? For me, this is really simple. You look at the other sports, professional or college. We mentioned the auto qualifiers, but I can tell you this: if you get to your conference championship game, now I've heard this from JJ, I've heard it from Nick Saban. Not all conferences are equal. Well, you know what? They're not equal in college basketball. They're not equal in college baseball. They're not equal in college softball. They're not equal in soccer. But you know what? We all have requirements. And if you make your conference championship game and we get a Power 5 next year, and that's a conversation for another show, that's going to be 10 right there. Okay, you're going to have 10. Then you take two group of 5 teams and make it 12. Now, I know the SEC, I can feel the earthquake already in the house in my Atlanta. You can't take 2 SEC teams. We're the best conference in America. Well, you know what? Not all things in life are equal. So if we're going to 12, that's the only idea I have. Now, if we go more than 12, then maybe there's some wild cards in there where you win 10 games and it's about wins and losses to me. Now, if you want to make it about schedule, I'll say it real quick. Put them in divisions. Make only each conference at the most 12 teams in each conference. You could have a power of 6. That way you'd have 2 divisions of 6. You play everybody in your division. You win your division. You play in the conference title game. So a division winner would automatically get that auto bid to go to the playoffs. That's the only thing I can think of. You can expand that to 16, however you want to do it. But that's my idea.
My idea would be around 32 teams would be my ideal bracket. I like the high school playoffs here in Georgia, where each region gets 4 teams. I kind of see something like that similar with each and every conference. Maybe you get it down to, oh, let's say, I don't know, 8 conferences. You get everybody into 8 conferences. You have the top 4 from each conference get in, and boom, there's your auto qualifiers, and you can play it out on the field. I do think auto qualifiers are necessary to take out bias, and I think that's the best way to do it. 32 teams, 8 conferences, and do divisions in each conference. And honestly, in my format, there'd be no need for a conference championship game. You just play for your region or your conference and move from there. And I like that aspect because here in the state of Georgia, GHSA level 5A, 4A, 3A, all the way down, it's solved on the field. And there's auto qualifiers like Todd and I have talked about. Not all conferences are equal, but this is college football, and you have to deal with that. That's just the way it is. It's an imperfect sport, but we love it for all those imperfections. We love it for the quirkiness of the rivalries. We love it for the passion that each fan base brings to the table when they have a good season, aka Indiana this year. So you want to instill that in college football, and I think doing it like that, where everybody has a realistic shot in their region, conference, whichever you want to call it, you can move forward like that.
Hey,
Todd, go ahead.
Can I ask you a question? Because I like what you said. I like what you said. But here's the question. If you do that and you're going to go to 32, no, you're going to have to cut down on the regular season. Nobody's going to want to cut down on the regular season because of the money. And nobody's going to want to cut down on a conference championship game because of that money. Now, you can make up some of the money in the conference championship game by having the extra rounds of the playoffs. But these other schools that aren't going to get it, they're not going to give up their one. You're going to cut it down to a 10-game season. How are you going to do that? Because your heart's in the right place. But we always say on the show, follow the money. What do you do there?
It's a hypothetical question for a reason. There's no way to cut it up and break it down because the way you said, there's still bias in the fact you have at-large bids. I'm just trying to completely take at-large bids out. I think that's the best way to do it. Unfortunately, you would lose a lot of college football programs. There would only be 60, 70, 80 schools left from the 135 that are going to play football in 2025. So
you're right.
And it's an ever-changing landscape daily. Wayne, go ahead. You want to get in on this again?
Well, no, I just had a question about your what'd you call them, regions? If we're going to go to a regional setup like that, I really think to motivate that team better, whichever region wins the championship, anybody living in that region will be able to have food supplied to them for the remainder of the year until next year's football championship.
Until
What
next
are you,
year's
government package of care?
And since Georgia is in the college football playoffs this year, Raising Cane's Chicken.
Yeah, for
providing
everybody.
you meals.
Lord, man. You know what? You know what, though? We're all kind of expanding on this. We're trying to come up with something creative. But like JJ said, I do believe, and I know JJ believes this too, I do believe we're going to end up splitting the pie of teams up in D1 where you're only going to get 70 or 80 or so to play for the big boys, and then the others are going to have to play for their own championship. And then another thing to add is, what are you going to do? Because Nick Saban said today, that Alabama shouldn't be playing Mercer, even though they did it when he coached there. But that's not his control. And also, do you exclude those, these Alabamas from playing them? In order for these schools to survive, they've got to play one game against somebody. So I think you could have one game where you can play a school like that on every big boy schedule. That way the little boys get the school, get the money, and then you must play two Power 5 teams, and that will help the schedule discrepancy along with splitting them up in divisions, because this year, as you guys all know, you take a look at Texas's schedule compared to Georgia's schedule, there's no comparison. You put these guys in divisions, you're going to get a balanced schedule.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, and this will be my final little topic before we move on to our Pick Six. And folks, if you like the content, give us a like, give us a subscribe at ATL Prime Sports across the board, and hit that notification button so you get notified when our latest content drops. As we talked about that, no schedule is the same. Talked about Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame. They don't have a lot of combined wins between them versus the top 25 currently as it is. Your thoughts on the current college football playoff rankings, and do you think they stay like this going into championship weekend? Todd, we'll do this real quick. Go ahead. Your thoughts on the current college football playoff rankings.
That's interesting because, people went after me, the Georgia fans in particular, on my Twitter account because I had Boise State above. Well, my biggest thing is wins and losses, because the schedule is so unbalanced now. It's really not fair to a lot of teams because their schedules are put in advance, and then you had the new schedules when everybody had that conference realignment. They really can't control that. So Boise State's only loss was to Oregon by 3. And if you watch them, they're a really good team. I believe they'll make it. But in terms of any changes for next week, I'm going to go back to my original statement. It depends on Indiana and Notre Dame. I believe those teams will win. I believe Penn State will win. I said Notre Dame. I believe Ohio State will beat Michigan. I really don't see a lot of change. Georgia will beat Georgia Tech. I'm not giving who I'm picking for the spread. South Carolina and Clemson's an interesting game. I won't give that away. There are a lot of interesting games. But if anybody could sneak up there after beating Auburn, it would be Alabama, and we'd hear guys like Legend, who's gone crazy on Feinbaum's show, which I don't listen to because I can't stand it, but I get the clip. And this guy all of a sudden will have real life, and honestly, that just wants me to make me puke.
Yeah, I don't think there'll be much chaos this weekend. I do think I won't give it quite away, but I do think there is one team that drops a game this weekend that we may not think. But in general, this is the way I judge wins and losses. And I've told you this, Todd, off air, and Wayne or listeners, you may have heard me say this a time or two on this show. Wins and losses, to me, are the end-all, be-all. But if you're within one game, that strength of schedule argument comes into play. So in this scenario, let's say Georgia wins out and Boise wins out. It's 11-1 versus 10-2. Georgia played the number one strength of schedule in terms of record, top 25 opponents. I think that gives you a game cushion on a team like Boise State. So that is where I go. If you're within one game, you have the argument. If it's a let's say it was 9-3 versus let's say Georgia drops to Georgia Tech and it's 9-3, they no longer have that argument versus Boise State because you can't make up two games with my critique. So it's going to be really chaotic if what happened last weekend happens this weekend inside the top 10, because the committee's going to get really, really they're going to have a lot of questions to answer. And I'm all for the chaos as long as the right teams get in at the end of the day. Wayne, your final thought on the current college football playoff rankings, and then we'll get to the Pick Six.
I figured they're going to rank them like they're going to rank them. We're going to get to watch the games. Everybody's going to play. And they're going to be some great games. And so pick the team that's in the playoffs that you like and follow them. That's all best you can do at this point, and enjoy yourself.
There you go. Enjoy November, as our friend of the show, Tim Brando, has said countless times before. Well, folks, that wraps up our college football playoff roundtable discussion. Let's get to our pick six. We picked 6 of the best football games from college and pro. Spreads are from Wednesday per ESPNBet.com. Go over the rankings real quick. Larry's starting to pull away from us after a 6-0 week last week. He is 45-32-1. That's a whopping 13 games over 500. This guy's picking about 70%. So listeners, listen up to Larry Gardner. The guy is speaking truth this year. Wayne, you're in second place, 42-35-1 after a pretty good week last week at 4-2. Todd and I also had decent weeks. 500 is better than losing.
Yeah.
Todd, you're at 40-37-1, above 500, and I can't get over the hump. I went 3-3 again, 37-40-1, coming in the rear for myself. Let's get into it, folks. The first game of the weekend, clean, old-fashioned hate. Georgia Tech, 7-4, travels to Athens to take on the number 7 Georgia Bulldogs at 9-2. Georgia's 19.5-point favorites. Over-under in this one's 53 and a hook. A Friday night game, 7:30 p.m. on ABC. I thought this would have been the first time these two teams have played on a Friday night. I would have been mistaken. They did it once back in the 90s. TC, I'm anxious to hear what you got to say. Start us off, buddy.
Well, I've said all along Georgia should clobber Georgia Tech, but the way they looked against UMass, they wouldn't have beat a good team last week. They got smoked. They got smoked by Ole Miss. They haven't played well. And, I can't believe it. This is Georgia. This is SEC. This is sacred ground here. Well, Georgia Tech's going to go on the sacred ground and cover the spread.
I like the prediction. Wayne, what say you?
Man, you know how I feel about this points. I got to take Georgia Tech and the points on this one. Georgia will probably win the game, but I with those points,
Right.
I mean, how can you pick against that?
Man, now I want to take Georgia because everybody's going Georgia Tech. Look, I'm a college
Well, then
football
do it.
fan more so than a Georgia fan. I would love to see Georgia Tech win this football game. I would. I don't think they'll do it. I'm taking Georgia Tech in the points simply because Georgia's stunk against the spread this year. Straight up 3-8 versus the spread. And you're right, Todd. Georgia gave up the most rushing yards of the season last week to UMass, who had only scored 21 or more points or 20 or more points in 2 other FBS matchups all year. They did it against the Dogs. They looked pretty ferocious in the first quarter, going up 7-0 real quick. But here it comes down to this. Georgia Tech is 7-0 this season when they rush for over 119 yards, 0-4 when they don't. And Georgia Tech is on a 6-game losing streak to its in-state foe. So I'm going to stick with my original point. I'm going to take Georgia Tech in the points, but mainly because Georgia's just trash against the spread this year. 3-8 versus that spread. So we got everybody going with Georgia Tech. Larry went Georgia Tech in the points as well. That's going to be interesting. Wouldn't surprise me now if the Dogs win by 45 on something on Friday night because we all went with Georgia
Drug test
Tech.
you when the show's over. I can't believe you just said Georgia Tech to beat Georgia. My house just moved when you said it. I'm going to drug test you tomorrow.
No, I didn't say they would win. I just said they'd cover the spread. I didn't say they'd win. I just said they'd cover the spread.
No. You said you wanted Georgia Tech to win, and it would be me.
No, I did not. You love to hear what you love to hear. I said I would love to see Georgia Tech win the game as a college football fan. That is what I said.
So that means you want Georgia Tech to win.
No, I said I would love to see it as a college football fan because it would create chaos.
Test you Friday.
But
Go on.
to be honest with you, I think Georgia Tech will win this game right around by that point total. It might even be 19 points. We could be saved by the hook. But we're all going Georgia Tech in the points for pretty similar reasons. Georgia hasn't done well against the spread. Georgia Tech's playing really good right now. Philo and Haynes King are running the football effectively. They do multiple run fronts. They run it wide. They run it between the tackles. And Go check out the film guy on YouTube, Brooks Austin. He does a really good job of breaking down Georgia Tech's offensive attack. Number 15, South Carolina, 8-3, travels to Death Valley to take on the number 12 Clemson Tigers at 9-2. Clemson's 2.5-point home favorites. Over under this one's 49 and a hook. This is a Saturday noon kickoff on ESPN for the Palmetto Bowl. And let me tell you, folks, this is a college football playoff elimination game. South Carolina's quarterback, Lenora Sellers, has been really good versus the blitz the last 5 weeks. 40 of 56, 725 yards, 9 touchdowns, 1 interception. They did give up the sack versus the blitz, but also Sellers gets the first down versus the blitz. 61% of the time, to be exact. So if you're blitzing, 61% of the time, Sellers is getting the first down, whether it's a pass or he's taking it down and running it himself. Very effective at running the football. Cade Klubnik's done a good job as Clemson's quarterback running the football as well with his legs. But here's the difference to me. Clemson, in its 2 losses this season, 1 sack. 1 sack of the quarterback. They'll need to increase that number to 4+ to have a shot Saturday. South Carolina's pass rush is one of the best in the country, and that's the difference in the game to me. I think South Carolina gets after Klubnik, and I think South Carolina in those points, but I think a straight-up victory, about a 25-24 win for the South Carolina Gamecocks, who are one of the hottest teams in the country right now. Give me the Cocks and the points. Todd, what say you?
So you think so? Okay, I see what you're saying. Well, again, this is sacred ground here. We're talking the SEC. They should beat up on the ACC. You hear all these SEC fans. The ACC sucks. Well, you know what? They don't suck too bad according to the point spread. Now, I do think South Carolina will win this game. And it'll be very close like you. But to sit there and say that the SEC is just God almighty and way better than everybody, nah. Seeing that now, thanks to the NIL and the transfer portal, these other conferences are starting to catch up. But I will take the sacred ground of the SEC in South Carolina.
Wayne, what say you, buddy?
Well, I'm back on that Beamer train, and so I'm taking South Carolina and the points. But I think South Carolina is going to win this game outright by probably 10 points or more.
Ooh, you like the double digits. I think South Carolina's the hottest football team in the country, too.
Yeah.
They're a good football team. Their 3 losses are really, really, really close losses to really good teams, and they put it to Texas A&M just a couple weeks ago. Larry, Gardner, going with the Tigers at home. Tigers are really – Go ahead, Todd.
No, South Carolina got smoked by Ole Miss 27-3. That game was the one that wasn't close.
Yeah,
they had
close
2 of their 3 losses.
I meant to say 2 out of their 3 losses have been really close. But yeah, Clemson to cover for Larry Gana. Our third game of the evening, I added this one late because it's rivalry weekend. Number 5, Notre Dame travels to Southern California to take on the USC Trojans. 6-5, Notre Dame 7.5-point road favorites. Over under in this one's 51 and a hook. 3:30 p.m. on the old CBS, that old SEC time slot. Here it is, showing up with Notre Dame in the schedule. Wayne, start us off, buddy. What say you?
I got to take Notre Dame in this one because USC is just not a team that I care much for. I feel like they get preseason ranked too high in both major sports. So for them to get beat last game of the season will be excellent.
So you're going Notre Dame to cover.
Right.
Larry's doing the same thing. He's taking touchdown Jesus to cover the 7.5. Todd, what you got?
Man, you can't bet against Pat Mahomes. You can't press them, says Herm Edwards, and you can't bet against Notre Dame and that offensive line and touchdown Jesus, even though the game is played on the left coast. Notre Dame is a more physical team. They're very physical, as the former coach would say, and I got Notre Dame.
Boy, I tell you what, this to me was, if not the toughest game to pick of the college slate. I'm going with SC in the points here. USC's 5 losses are all by 1 possession. You combine the losses for less than 20 points. All 5 losses are either in the last possession of the game period or within the last 2 or 3 big plays of the fourth quarter. So they've lost 5 games by a combined 19 points. They've had a lead in every single game in the fourth quarter. So that 6-5 record, folks, they're a pretty decent football team. They're not as bad as your typical 6-5 football team at this point. Look, Jaden Maivala, I hope I pronounced that correctly. He's 2-0 since taking over the starting gig for Miller Moss. Notre Dame is 1-1 in 1 possession games, folks, and we all know the one loss was to Northern Illinois. So if this game is close, I like it to go South Carolina. There's 2 USCs playing, but I like it to go USC's way. I think USC loses this game by a field goal and continues that I was leading in the fourth quarter and lost trajectory. So I'm going SC in the points. I'm the only one that did that. Everybody else went Notre Dame to cover. Our 4th and final college game, arguably the biggest and most impactful in the college football playoffs of the weekend. Number 3, Texas, 10-1, travels to College Station to take on their arch rival, the Texas A&M Aggies, ranked number 20 overall. 8-3 is the Aggies record. Texas -5 in this one. Over under 48 and a hook. 7:30 p.m. on ABC. Winner gets Georgia in the SEC title game. TC, what say you?
Before I go to Texas and Texas A&M, telling you what, USC, my goodness, they lost to Maryland, Washington, Minnesota, and Michigan. And you're going to trust them? I got 2 words. Good luck. Now, and for Texas and Texas A&M, this will be the first time in, 12 years that they played since Texas bolted for the SEC, and A&M just, Texas is full of money. Blah, blah, blah. It's all about the money. My, oh my, how times and the tables have turned. And now A&M is in the SEC. Sacred ground here. So, when it comes to this game, A&M has been waiting for 12 years to play it. They're going to get them at home. I mean, this game, I think, is really tough to predict. Of course, the Texas, the starting quarterback, has an ankle issue. He's questionable. It seems like that he's going to play, but if not, it'll be Arch Manning in a really big setting. And you know what? That'll be really interesting when it comes to picking this game, because if the starter can't go and Arch plays, it's a really big environment. So, I think this is the toughest game of the week to pick. But if you're asking me, man, this is such a close gig. A&M has been really tested this year. That loss to Notre Dame at the beginning of the season, they're not the same team. You know what? I mean, I really thought about it, but I'm going to take A&M and the points at home.
It's a good pick. Not a bad pick. Texas A&M and the points. Wayne, what say you?
Well, I'm going to have to go with Texas in this because I feel like they are the team of destiny, and I've already predicted this. I think it's going to be Texas and Oregon in that championship game after all the 30 or 80 teams finish with their games.
Yeah, Larry's got the Longhorns.
Sorry, did A&M lose to Auburn? I'm sorry, A&M lost to Auburn last week, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did.
No wonder that made Wayne take Texas. It almost made me Texas. Hell, I'm thinking about taking Texas.
They lost to South Carolina at home by what, like 20-something points. So yeah. They have lost a couple games by double digits. So, again, Larry's taking Texas. Wayne's taking Texas. Todd's going A&M in the points. Hook 'em horns for me. It's pretty easy in this one. They've recruited better. Texas is better up front on the line of scrimmage. I think they'll protect Quinn Ewers or Arch Manning very well. This is the first time they have played this game since 2011. Texas's defense is one of the best in the country, holding opponents to just around 12 points per game. Texas A&M has struggled to throw the football at times. A completion rate of only 58.8% between their two quarterbacks. Texas makes the Aggies one-dimensional, wins the game on the road. It's that simple. Everybody's been saying Texas hasn't played anybody, this and that. Texas will win this game. And remember, that's why everybody picked them early in the year. Georgia, Texas, blah, blah, blah. And you're going to get your rematch. It'll be Georgia versus Texas in the SEC championship game. I think Texas wins this game handily on the road. They've done it before, and it will happen again. Steve Sarkisian will have this team ready to play, and they're one of the best passing attacks in the country when Ewers is on. So I like Texas. Hook 'em horns. That completes our college picks. Let's go to the NFL. We got a Thanksgiving Day game. I think it was the best one of the day of the bunch. The Dolphins, 5-6, travel to Green Bay to take on the 8-3 Packers. Packers, 3.5-point home favorites. Over/under in this one's 46 and a hook. Again, Thursday night, Thanksgiving Day, 8:20 p.m. on NBC. The Dolphins are on a 3-game winning streak. The offense has looked better and better each week. 34 points the last 2 weeks. Packers are banged up at wide receiver, cornerback, and linebacker, where you're going to need to cover Waddle. You're going to need to cover Tyreek Hill. You're going to need to cover Jonnu Smith, who's been involved in the offense a lot lately. David Akan out the backfield, really good receiving threat, can also run between the tackles. Look, I like the Dolphins to keep on winning, get back into this playoff hunt, and people forgot the Dolphins are a pretty good team. I like them to win their 4th in a row. Again, Packers are banged up. No Romeo Doubs. He's in concussion protocol. No Jair Alexander. No Edgerrin Cooper. They're all been ruled out for the matchup. Both these defenses are playing pretty well in terms of scoring D. They're top 11. Packers 10th. Dolphins 11th. I like Tua and the Dolphins, guys. I like Coach McDaniel, what he's doing. Never lost his confidence in his team, and they're playing like it. Give me the Dolphins and those points on the road in a tough environment in Green Bay in the cold. They're bound to win a cold football game. Todd, what say you?
Miami to win in Green Bay in the cold and potential snow? No. Nope. Green Bay's got a bell cow of a running back in Jacobs. They're going to run the ball. I don't see the Dolphins performing well in the snow. I see Green Bay. You don't bet against the Packers in Lambeau.
What you got, Wayne?
Well, I'm going to have to take the Dolphins in the points on this one. And it has nothing to do with how either team is playing or how they're, the injuries or any of that. It's just that I just cannot pick the Packers right now.
Hey, JJ, I'll give you a stat. You love stats. Miami has just one win in the last 32 years when the temperature is 23 degrees or colder. Good luck.
Well, I don't think it's going to be quite that cold Saturday night or Thursday night. I just don't think it'll be quite that cold. I like the Dolphins' chances. They're playing hot. The Bears shoulda, coulda, woulda versus the Packers a week ago. They did not. So I see the Packers as an inconsistent football team, up and down. And I like the Dolphins. Like I said, they're a motivated football team.
You better go look at that forecast.
Larry's taking Green Bay as well. We'll go to our 6th and final game. We're obviously picking the Atlanta Falcons, and I keep wanting to call them San Diego. The Los Angeles Chargers travel across the country to take on the 6-5 Falcons. LA's 2.5-point favorites. Over/unders 48.5. Man, this was a tough game to pick too. Everything's telling me to take the Chargers. They're the number 1 scoring defense. Kirk Cousins and the Falcons, they're going to have to find a way to score against this defense. Again, only giving up around 16 points a game, 15.9 to be exact for all you technicalers out there. But the Falcons, they got to find a way to win this game, or else they're staring a possible 4-game losing streak right in the face. And that would just get the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right back in it. They're coming off a bye week. I'm hoping Raheem Morris gets him coached up. And again, I think the difference in this game is LA is awful on third downs. They are one of the worst football teams in the NFL at converting third downs on offense. Only 38.5% on third down. Atlanta's got to get off the football field, and I think they will. I think they'll fix a little bit of the defensive issues. Obviously, they won't get after the passer because, well, the Falcons haven't done that in 50 years. So I'm taking the Falcons in the points, and I don't know why other than the fact that they're just dadgum due, kind of like the Dolphins are due in cold weather. Give me the Falcons in the points. I'm probably going to get my ass bit for that one, but I'm doing it because they need to win a game. And if good teams win games, they need to win. I do think the Falcons are a decent team. We'll see if they're a good team Sunday afternoon. Falcons in the points. Wayne, you going Falcons?
Yeah, I'm going Falcons. So apparently you and I are going to get our butts bit together.
We'll see. Larry's going Chargers. Todd, are you going Chargers?
Let me tell you something. The Falcons, there's a new accident waiting to happen. They're full of gold. I've been saying it for a long time. The Falcons secondary is god-awful. The Chargers and Herbert, they'll protect him. The Falcons don't get to the quarterback. He'll light him up like a Christmas tree. Jimmy Harbaugh has fond memories of the Georgia Dome. And I know you know where I'm going, JJ. When the 49ers were down 17-0, and a young quarterback, who I can't stand, Colin Kaepernick, lit the Falcons up with his legs and arm, and the Falcons were 10 yards away, and they couldn't get it done. Jimmy Harbaugh gets it done again on Sunday. That was the same end of the field, and Alabama owed Georgia. Georgia had 7 yards to go the same year to get to the national title game against Notre Dame, and they lost on the same end of that field in Georgia Dome. Yes, Georgia's daddy is Bama. Bama's daddy is Vandy. And guess what? The Falcons that are Jim Harbaugh's daddy, they'll lose to their dad.
Got it. All right. Well, folks, that wraps up our pick six for the weekend. And let's get to our final thought, guys. I'll tee this one off. Mine's short and sweet. It's rivalry week, one of my favorite weeks of the college football season. Records are thrown out the window, and it's going to be absolute chaos in Tuscaloosa for that Iron Bowl. I think Hugh Freeze will pull out a bunch of stops to try and ruin Alabama's season and get Auburn bowling, which would be a huge accomplishment in terms of coaching and getting recruits back on track with Auburn. But clean old-fashioned hate, we mentioned USC, Notre Dame, all the big-time rivalries. Kentucky, Louisville's happening. It's just a fun weekend of college football. Enjoy it. And from my family to yours, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. That's my final thought. You guys go ahead. Duke it out for who goes next.
All right. All right. Go ahead there, Todd.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Wayne. Happy Thanksgiving to both you guys. Go ahead, Wayne.
Yeah. Well, the only thing that I want to bring to everybody's attention is basketball season has started, and two of the teams that I see heading for a WWE type match are both ranked, and that's Cincinnati and Xavier. So set your sights on those games when those two teams play, because it's going to be rough, and who knows what could happen.
The Battle of Cincinnati, Ohio.
Yep. All right, TC, what you got?
Well, the best rivalry in college football. No, it's not in the Southeast. It's not in sacred ground. It's not there. It's Michigan and Ohio State. And you know what? Ohio State's daddy has been Michigan for the past 3 years. The 8 years before that, they didn't play in COVID because, well, Michigan didn't want to play because they would have got their butt kicked, and we don't need to go into that. But the 8 years before that, Ohio State was their daddy. So now it's time for Ohio State to put all the demons to rest and make sure they play Oregon in the Big Ten title game. So I think Michigan will have a new daddy. It'll be Ohio State on Saturday. Now, that point line, guys, I saw at one time was 23.5. And I wish we'd have picked this game because I would have taken Michigan. These teams hate each other. They hate each other. No, the players like each other. The fans hate each other. The players are respectful to one another and they have a lot of relationships. There's a lot of great stories. There's a Big Ten show when they had tiebreaker. If you ever go take a look at it, in '73, Michigan and Ohio State tied. They sent Ohio State to the Rose Bowl instead of Michigan, and obviously Bo was pissed. That's a long story. But if you go watch the episode Tiebreaker, a lot of those friends sitting at the table, big-time players from Michigan, Ohio State, Archie Manning, the other side from Michigan, and Cornelius Green, and et cetera, they're all friends. The fans hate each other. Now, here's an interesting fact between Michigan and Ohio State. The team that has ran for the most yards in the last 23 years has won the game. That's why I think this game's going to be close. Michigan's gotten better running the football. Warren has gotten a little better throwing the football. It's a big rivalry in the shoe. Ohio State wins, but they don't cover. Happy Thanksgiving to you guys and your families. Happy Thanksgiving to Larry, and all you guys have a safe and happy holiday. I'll be at Georgia State tomorrow working a couple of games.
Well, folks, that concludes our weekly broadcast. For Wayne in Memphis, Todd's in the Woodstock area. I'm over here in Lilburn, Georgia, folks. That completes our show. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at ATL Prime Sports, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Probably going to do a live show next week, so stay tuned to social media for that. And, at ATL Prime Sports, get you one. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. See ya.
Yeah.